So have you ever heard of a peace treaty that comes with, well, an invoice? Let's dive into this because a really surprising proposal from Donald Trump has world leaders facing a very unusual and very expensive choice. We're going to break down what this whole thing is about.
And yeah, that's really the heart of it, isn't it? The big idea here isn't just about bringing leaders together. It's about asking them to literally buy their seat at the table. It's this wild idea that really blurs the line between global diplomacy and a high-stakes business deal.
All right, so let's get into the actual proposal. What we're looking at is a brand new international group, and its goal is, well, it's about as ambitious as it gets. So it's called the Peace Board, and its mission right out of the gate is to find a permanent solution for the conflict in Gaza, and then, just move on to tackle other wars around the globe. And who's at the head of this board? The proposal is very specific. One person, Donald Trump.
Now, this is a really important point to get. This wasn't some idea that bubbled up from the international community. No, the source material makes it crystal clear that this is a top-down thing, conceived and pushed forward entirely by Trump himself.
Look, if you're building a board to solve the world's problems, the guest list is kind of everything, right? And the list for this peace board is, let's just say, it's just as unconventional as the idea itself.
So you're probably wondering, who actually got an invitation? The names on this list tell us a whole lot about what this new group might be all about.
And it is a fascinating mix. You've got leaders of major powers, like India's Narendra Modi and Russia's Vladimir Putin. But then you also have leaders from Turkey and Pakistan, nations with, pretty complex roles on the world stage. And then there are smaller countries in the mix too, like Albania and Argentina. But wow, the real story here might be who isn't on the list. I mean, think about it. Russia and Turkey are in, but traditional Western allies like France and Germany, they're out. And a global superpower like China, nowhere to be found. This is definitely not some new version of the G7. It feels like something else entirely, maybe even a pivot away from those old alliances. But that guest list is only half the story. This next part is where the whole proposal goes from just being unusual to something truly unprecedented. We're talking about the price of admission.
$1 billion. That is the fee. According to the draft charter, that's what it costs for any country to get a permanent seat on this peace board. And it's not a donation, it's not a pledge, it's a straight-up entry fee.
And that's the thing that changes everything. It completely reframes how international cooperation could work. Instead of being about alliances or shared history, membership is now based on your ability and your willingness to pay up. It turns a diplomatic opportunity into, well, a purchase.
Okay, so let's say you pay your $1 billion. You're in. What happens then? How would this whole board actually work? Well, the details, or maybe more importantly, the lack of details, are pretty revealing. So, the draft charter does lay out a few ground rules. The chairman? Already picked. The official language is going to be English. But key stuff, like where the headquarters will even be located, still up in the air. And get this, even the official seal is just going to be designed by the chairman. It's a setup with a very, very clear center of power.
Which, of course, brings us to the billion-dollar question, literally. If even just a few countries pay this fee, we're talking about a fund with tens of billions of dollars. And here's the kicker. The draft charter has absolutely zero rules or oversight for how that money would be managed or spent.
When you put all this together, it raises a huge question for the existing global order. I mean, think about it. An independent, super-rich board operating outside of the usual structures. That could be a serious challenge to institutions like the United Nations, which has been the main stage for this stuff for decades.
And let's be super clear on this point. This is not a UN committee. It's not a new branch of the UN. It is designed to be a totally separate thing, which means it could either work with the UN or potentially it could compete with it for power and influence. Now, just to add another layer of complexity to all of this, Trump himself has actually claimed that the UN Security Council endorsed this whole idea. Now, there has been no independent proof of this claim at all, but just him saying it creates a lot of confusion about whether this board is legitimate and how it fits in with the system we already have. So all of this leads to a really tough choice for countries like India. I mean, what do? Do you pay $1 billion to get a seat in what could become a new center of global power, or do you stay out and risk being excluded, but you also avoid the huge cost and the total unpredictability of it all? It is a massive strategic gamble, no matter which way you go.
And that's really what it all boils down to. The price isn't just $1 billion, is it?
It's about what it means to buy into a brand new, completely untested system of global governance, and what could be lost, or maybe gained, in the process. It's a question the world might have to answer, and maybe sooner than we think.